Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O, September 28th, 7:54 in the morning. So we're a little bit early, but we're getting it going. There I am. I was tucked in the beanie this morning. But it's a great morning. It's one of those, for allergy people like myself, it's always allergy time. You're always like, oh, God, it's going to get a little windy. I was looking outside the window, but, you got the windows open now. Gosh, it's beautiful. Oh, man, just gorgeous. Anyway, I hope you're having a gorgeous morning and enjoying. And we're going to be in Psalm 40 today. That's what we're going to be doing. And then maybe I'll get on my bike and go for a ride. Hey, there's my bike right there. So maybe I'll go on the bike. We'll see. Do some stretching. Oh, stretch out the body a little bit. That's always good. But I always enjoy getting in the Word and just reading. I love just reading through the Bible too. And I find it so fascinating just to go, verse by verse, kind of chapter by chapter, kind of book by book, and finding out just how true it is that this book is life. And it has so many answers for us. A lot of times we're just not in it. And when you're not in it, you don't know it. And I've definitely been there, man, growing up, where you criticize it, you talk bad about it, but you never really read it. So, hopefully you can tag along with me. I'm a product of my culture, Generation X SoCal guy. And you're probably a product of your culture too, a little bit. That's for sure. So anyway, I'm going to read away. And so Psalm 40, it says, it's kind of cool because we've had the last two Psalms be super cries out to God, man. Oh, man. This King David just struggling. And it says, 40, I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. Cool. I've done a worship song that is right off of that verse. And you might find that, right? A lot of our worship songs are just straight out of the Psalms. So I waited patiently for the Lord, and he helped me, and he heard my cry, right? He turned to me and heard my cry. So it's kind of the answer to the last two Psalms of King David crying out. But waiting patiently. I kind of like that this morning. Am I a person who waits patiently well? There was one time I was on the I-10 freeway and it got backed up. Now, you didn't know why, but it was backed up. And guess what? We sat for 6 to 8 hours. Unreal. 6 to 8 hours on a freeway, just waiting for them to unblock the madness up ahead. And talk about trying to wait patiently. Man, people were agitated, upset, all over the place. It was kind of scary. You didn't know if people were just going to flip the lid because they were just tweaking. Everybody was just messed up. Too long to wait, right? But waiting patiently, that's something to work on, today. Am I a good person? Am I a person who waits patiently well for food or whatever it is you're doing? You're out to eat. Have you ever been with someone who doesn't wait patiently? That can be a real bummer. That's for sure. That can make you feel kind of awkward too. But it might be something where we just come to God in the morning today and we just say, God, help us to wait patiently. So King David's waiting patiently for God to answer, God to move, God to do something, take action, those kind of things. Have you ever felt that way? God, just do something. He lifted me out of the pit of despair. I love this translation, the pit of despair. He lifted me right out of that thing, out of the mud and out of the mire. This is about grace. The only thing that gets us out of the mud and the mire, from my perspective, has got to be the grace of God. Meaning, when I look around at the planet, all I see is a bunch of humans that are absolutely a wreck. We can't do nothing right. We can't do nothing right. We try. Seems like we're doing it right. It sometimes feels right. But then, in the end, it's wrong. Something's wrong. The motivations are wrong. The thing we did was wrong. It really had repercussions. It was a ramification of what we decided to do. Oh man, it's just so many factors. But it seems like we're in a pit, and it's not a good one. It's one of despair, right? A lot of despair. Even those that have things, it seems like they're in despair as well. And this life can be definitely seen as a pit of despair in the sense that, we're all going to die. And who's going to get us out of that pit? Mud and the mire are all on us. And it says, but he gets us out. We can sometimes criticize other people, but we got to realize that the only way we've gotten out of any pit ourselves is someone threw us a ladder and we got out. But someone threw us the ladder. It wasn't in there. We don't know how to get out of the pit. Someone gave us the ladder and we got out. That's grace. Someone has given us a ladder, and that ladder is Jesus. He is the ladder. He even talks about that, by the way, in the Gospels. Very interesting. He has given us a new song to sing. He says he set his feet on solid ground and steadied him as he walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Ooh, a new song. David's like, whoa, man, I feel energized. I've been put out of the pit. I've been set on my feet upon a rock on a stable place. I'm feeling good. Whenever we get healthy, we feel good, healthy mentally, healthy bodily, right? Spiritually. It really comes out in praise. A lot of times that comes out in a lot of song. And David definitely wrote a new song, right? I mean, he certainly sang songs when he was sad and depressed and everything like that as well. But he seems to have a new vigor, in him. Kind of some new juice. And he wants to, write a tune. So he says, he has given me this new song. He says, many will see what God has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Isn't that a cool attitude? Hey, man, I'm stoked at what you did for me, God. So people will see what you, and they'll actually put their trust in you. Man, that's a really cool motivation. That's what we call motivation, really having the glory of God be your motivation. That's phenomenal that he thinks that way. Don't just be good to me, but be good to me so that others see how good you are and that they flee to you, right? Man, gosh, is that my attitude? That's a real convictor, right? Is my attitude that God does good things, heal or, prosper or whatever it is, do it so that people turn to God, right? People turn to God. That's an underliner, by the way. That's one that we gotta that they put their trust in God. Oh, the joys of those who trust in the Lord, who have no confidence in the proud or in those who worship idols. Where's my confidence lie today? Is it in God ultimately, the greater? Or is it in all of us little people out here just running around? Just tiny, tiny, tiny little specks in the galaxy. It says, O Lord of my God, you have performed many wonders for us. Your plans for us are too numerous to list. You have no equal. And he's just talking about the greatness of God, right? How logically God's the greater. And so, where is your confidence going to lie? Where is your stability going to lie? Where is your hope going to lie? Where is your emotional stability going to lie? Is it going to be in just people? Is it going to be turning on the news and seeing if you can get some peace from the news? Or is it going to be from your professors or, your teachers or your parents? Or is it going to be from God? For a lot of us that had parents that struggled, we'll put it that way, we had to rely on God a lot. I didn't know God, so I didn't really rely on God much. It took a while before I even picked up the book in my life and started reading it. And then I went, whoa, there is a greater. And started trusting that greater. I certainly knew that us little people struggle in many ways. So it says, O Lord, you have performed many wonders for us. Verse 5, your plans for us are too numerous to list. You have no equal. I love that. His plans for us. God has a lot of plans, a lot of thoughts towards us, right? And that's beautiful. I just love that idea that thinking about today that God is thinking about me personally. You take no delight in sacrifices or offerings. Now that you have made me listen, I finally understand. And hey, you've made me listen. Hey, God sometimes will bring us to a place where we just got to slow down and listen to the Lord. Maybe that's what he's doing in your life this morning, and you could thank him for that. God, thank you for slowing me down, getting me to listen. And it says sometimes we get so caught up in the sacrifices and offerings, right? The busyness, right? The toil, all the works that we forget just to listen. Let the word speak to us. So sometimes it's good to get up in the morning, take a stretch, and just listen, right? You take, then it says, verse 7, then I said, look, I have come as it is written about me in the scriptures. I take joy in doing your will, my God, for your instructions are written on my heart. You might want to look up where this passage is in the New Testament. Very cool. I love the idea of, hey, I've come to do your will, God. I take joy in your will and take instructions from you. Do we do that perfectly? Not really. I have told all your people about your justice. I have not been afraid to speak out. God, help us not be afraid to speak out about what God's goodness. I have not kept the good news of your justice hidden in my heart. See, David knew the good news. He taught the good news. He loved the good news. And the good news is obviously that, you know what? God's ways are better. And God is nearer than you ever imagined. And of course the good news is about the good news of what God's done to give us salvation through his son Jesus, the carpenter. And so David had all these wonderful glimpses of that, and he shared it. And so today I want to be one who shares the goodness of God. I have talked about your faithfulness and saving power. I have told everyone in the great assembly of your unfailing love and faithfulness. Man, David just can't tell enough people about God. I mean, that's awesome. Lord, don't hold back your tender mercies from me. Let your unfailing love and faithfulness always protect me. He's always crying out for mercy. David is always leaning on the glory, on the mercy of God. Always. Boy, do you need mercy? Do I need mercy? Then we lean on Jesus, right? He is that picture, that person who certainly has displayed and shown the mercy of God towards us. He says, for troubles surround me, too many to count. My sins pile up high. I can't see my way out. Wow, he's in the pit of despair. His sins are too high. People surround him, but his sin is over his head. They outnumber my hairs in my head. I've lost all courage. Oh, man. Again, the beginning of the psalm seems so powerful, so confident, and then you get to this second part and you're like, whoa, dude, David's really not all together. He's still got his sins that have piled high. Troubles surround him. He's asking God to help. He's crying out to God to help him quickly. He says, may those who try to destroy me be humiliated and put to shame. May those who take delight in my trouble be turned back in disgrace. Let them be horrified by their shame, for they said, we've got him now. But may all who search for you be filled with joy and gladness in you. May those who love your salvation repeatedly shout, the Lord is great. As for me, since I am poor and needy, let the Lord keep me in his thoughts. You are my helper, my Savior, my God. Do not delay. Wow. So a very cool psalm. This kind of vulnerability is one that's sometimes just very difficult for us. You know, David led in strength, but in very vulnerable strength. He was strong in being vulnerable in his prayer life. Meaning he didn't come off as this strong guy. He comes off as this guy who is just absolutely weak, absolutely in need, totally off, totally in the pit of despair, totally in the mud. Man, he makes it very clear in his songs that he does not have it together, that he's not this kind of amazing guy. And we see that in the totality of these psalms. But it's a cool song, right? I mean, it really is. It's kind of like confidence in God's ability to turn. God will turn, and God will do an action in our life. He will do something in our life, and David seems very confident about that, yet he still cries out about that. He talks about how God doesn't have an equal, right? He talks about how he put his trust in God, and that he desires for many to put their trust in God. And that's why he wants to see God do a work in his life, so that he can proclaim and preach and teach about the goodness of God. Not so he could tell people about how good he is, because he's obviously admitting he's not good, but so that people can be stoked about God. And so a good done to you is done so that we can turn towards God and say, thank you, God. That's the idea. And that might be a lot different than what you're used to. You might be used to a lot of strength and like power, and to hold on to your, quote, integrity. And what you mean by that is by showing strength, by not showing any frailty or vulnerability. And that's how a lot of us are raised and grow up, where we think having integrity is being flawless, that's integrity, is not having any moral failure. And so even if we do find a chink in the armor, we won't talk about it. We won't go there. We won't admit it, because to admit it, that's not good, right? And we try to brush it off. where our whole lives we have chinks in the armor, really. If not outwardly, by going to the clubs or things like that, it's inwardly, right? It's our internet searches, it's different things, it's the secret things, that no one sees, but yet they're there. And sometimes they're even in here. They can't even be seen in an internet search. There's stuff that's in the heart. But yet, David admits that God knows, that God has mercy, that God can deliver us, that God is gracious, that God has a lot of loving kindness, and that this is the good news, that we can come to God and God is there for us. So, man, I love this psalm. I mean, it's just so good. So you can always just remember Psalm 40 just by the first verse. That's how you can do a lot of these psalms, by the way. But I waited patiently for the Lord, and he heard my cry, right? He turned to me and heard my cry. So that's how you go, Psalm 40. I waited patiently. He heard my cry. He set my feet upon a rock, right? Pulled me out of the pit, right? I was filled with mud and mire, all that, but you can remember it by that first verse. So very cool. Tina, thanks for joining me this morning. Appreciate that. I got in a little early, by the way, so I probably threw some of you off again. But hope you enjoy the day. It's a beauty. So take care. Bye-bye.